How to handle this COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 has spread across the world, and there are many people who have lost their lives, and many are fighting for their lives in hospital. In the days and weeks ahead, the medical professionals are expecting that the number of cases and the number of deaths will climb even higher. World Health Organization had been assessing the outbreak of this virus round the clock, and they are concerned about the alarming levels of the increase of COVID-19. And that's why they have named it as pandemic. The word pandemic literally has the word panic in it. It's to ring the alarm bell clearly. But what is this disease? Why it is so panicky? It actually started in China from the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is able to infect humans and spread from human to human. If the disease spreads within a specific community or within a specific region or a country, it is termed as an epidemic. But now, if it moves from epidemic to pandemic, means it's based because of geographical spread. When it spreads across the world, we don't call it as epidemic, we call it as pandemic. Right now in India, we are facing the community spread. That is when the cause of the disease is unknown. Where they have contracted from, who have given this disease, everything is unknown. That is why we call it as community spread. While several drug trials are ongoing, there is currently no proof that hydroxychloroquine or dexamethasone or any other drug can cure or prevent COVID-19. The misuse of hydroxychloroquine can cause serious side effects and illness and even can lead to death. It will also take months and even years to develop an effective vaccine against this virus. At this juncture, what are we supposed to do? First, let's see why this virus is extremely contagious and fatal. Viruses are parasitic in nature, and they can survive and multiply if they are fused with the cells of a live host. The host can be a human, can be an animal or a plant or a bacteria. The vast majority of viruses do not cause disease, and unlike bacteria, virus only infect only one or two species. Animal viruses tend to have a natural animal reservoir where they reside and cause little or no damage. Examples of such reservoirs include birds for the West Nile virus, rodents for the Hanta virus, bats for the Ebola virus, and chimpanzee for the HIV virus that causes AIDS. When a virus has a primary reservoir in an animal, but also it can be transmissible to humans, we call it as zoonotic disease. When virus jump species, we get significant diseases. If this jump is induced by men, it is called bioterrorism. In the laboratory of inspired, determined, and well-funded bioterrorists, an animal virus can be genetically modified and developed specifically to infect human population. One can slightly alter a common virus like influenza and can make it deadlier. But what made this virus contagious and deadly? The virus cannot fly in the air. The virus does not live on surfaces also. It needs a host cell like a human cell. When viruses infect a host cell, they insert their genetic information into it. As a result, the body cells reproduce millions of copies of this virus. However, in each of these reproductions, small copying errors occur. Each of these errors also changes the genetic code of the virus. That is, we call it that virus mutates. The researchers have assumed that the first mutation spread in Wuhan, China. The protein with which the virus docks to the cells probably mutated in a host animal, possibly a bat or a pangolin or a tanuki. This mutation allowed the virus to be transmitted to human cells. It has not yet been clarified beyond whether where it really started or how it spread to humans. No one is sure about it. Normally, the human body is capable of protecting itself against such viruses. It produces antibodies that defend itself against virus attacks and make it immune. That is why we speak of immunity. If you have, it is everything is about immunity. How much immunity we have to fight against this deadly virus. But if the virus are already mutated and the antibodies formed in our bodies are programmed to an older version of the virus or the last version of the virus, then these antibodies are much less effective. It has yet to come up with new antibodies to fight the newly mutated one. This coronavirus typically affects the respiratory system, causing symptoms such as cough and shortness of breath and many others. We get sometimes some people get fever, some people don't have any symptoms at all. Initially, we thought it will affect only old people, but now we know many young people are also affected. Initially, we thought this will not come to countries which are having very hot climate, but now that also is defeated. Every country has this virus. And based on this mutation, the virus can be more lethal and can be less deadly. It can vary from person to person. That's why we see deaths varying from person to person and from country to country. For many people, the virus is mild, but it is lethal in some people. They die. Thermal scanners are effective in detecting people who have a fever. But against this virus, it fails because many carry this virus with no fever. And they say such strain of virus can easily spread to others more easily than those who have fever. So we should be very careful with people who does not have any fever because they can easily spread and it can fastly spread to the other person. Then what we are supposed to do? How can we detect? We don't have vaccine, we cannot detect, we don't have any medicine against it. And even a hot peppers or lemons or turmeric cannot help. Many say a lot of things about it, but nothing has helped. So what is the present situation? We see everywhere scared patients. People, when they come to know that they have got the virus, many do suicide. We can see overflowing hospitals, overworked doctors. The current pandemic has heightened uncertainty over the family, economy, employment, relationships, every facet of life. Such fear and uncertainty can leave us feel stressed, anxious, powerless over the situation. It has the power to drain us emotionally. It can trap us in endless what ifs. What ifs? What if it can come to me? What if it can come to my family member? What if I die alone? So many worst case scenarios about our tomorrows. In such a situation, how can we live a hopeful life? How can we find hope? I would use a model used by psychologists to explain. This model is called Kubler-Ross model. It explains the various stages a person goes through when he encounters a tragic event like death, divorce, or an accident. Because this model gives various stages, it has almost 5 stages. When someone goes through a negative situation in their life, they go through all these 5 stages. Number 1, denial. Number 2, anger. Number 3, bargaining. Number 4, depression. And number 5, acceptance. So now coming to number 1, denial. The refusal to accept something that wrong has happening to us. That we are right now living in this difficult situation. It's difficult to accept. Many people have not yet come to terms. They think that it will go away. But medical professionals are still telling the peak is yet to come. And this, when we think that it is, we are not affected by it and it is nothing, then we are living in denial. Next comes when we cross the stage of denial, when we get into the feeling of anger, when we can't control any situation, we feel like out of control, and then we get angry at that situation. We get angry why this happened, angry over the loss of income, angry over the loss of normal life, angry over this extra lockdown. We cannot buy anything, we cannot meet our closed ones. Many of us have our loved ones living in very far cities. Now it's no chance to go and meet them at this situation. Why is this happening? Why me? So now that is called bargaining. Why it is happening during my lifetime? It could have happened after that. Why should I face a plague like this? That is bargaining. Because of this only, we should never maintain social distance. We should maintain a good, big physical distance, at least 1 meter beyond that. But social distancing should never be there, because we need people at that time. We need someone to talk to. We need someone to express our fears. That's why now the next, if we don't have any of these things, we end up in depression. That is a fourth stage. For some, it can be mild, but for some, it can end up in clinical depression. And that mental level fitness is very, very important. The fifth and stage is acceptance, integration, and move on. Because the most important thing in life is this acceptance. And how fast we move from the first stage to the second, to the third, to the fourth, and finally come to this acceptance stage helps us in living through our life easily, helps us to sail through this pandemic easily, because negative events like this will affect, but it's based on our resilience, how fast we are able to cope up with this, how fast we are able to come out of this depression and move on. If you don't move on, if you're stuck to some stage, then it will affect our mental health very much. We should learn to accept the fact and learn to live with this. How do we live with this? We should always wear masks. We should have a very long physical distance. And then we should have people around us mentally to speak to us, to remove our fears, to talk to us. We should have a lot of family get-togethers over Zoom. We should have video conferencing calls with our family members. Have Bible studies over Zoom with your family members. That is really beautiful. You will be able to tell each other the biblical truths and support one another. That's very, very important, because this is the time that the Bible words help us to sail through so easily. Bible says in Romans 1:17 that just shall live by faith. Instead of walking with fear by what we see around, let us walk by faith on the Almighty God whom we cannot see. That's why it says walk by faith and not by sight. During such a time of peril, faith in the character of God and faith in the promises of God helps us to walk with humility, compassion, and passion. We can be joyful because He is there with us, and we are sheltered in His arms. When we know that we would never be swept away by panic and fear while we are suffering, instead of moving away from Him, we will snuggle closer to Him. C.S. Lewis says, God whispers to us in our pleasures. He speaks to us in our conscience, but shouts to us in our pain. Pain is the megaphone of God. God identifies with us in our sufferings by walking with us. Isaiah 43:2 has a beautiful verse. When you walk through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor that the flames scorch you. You walk through this pandemic, but with God, you will never fear the pain or the fear, really, because God walks through you. And even if you're swept by it, you have a hope of eternal life. Since Christ has risen from the dead, we have hope. He won a victory over death, and death has lost its power in our life. That's when we become designated agents of comfort and hope. Jesus healed people moved with compassion. Even we will become a compassionate agent and a healing agent. 2 Timothy 1 says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and of love and of sound mind. That's why we will be able to walk through this pandemic with powerful, with a sense of power and with a sense, with the full of love and with a sound mind. And finally, let us learn to look to his face every day. Let us learn to sit at his feet and listen to his voice. Psalm 34:4 says, I sought the Lord and he heard me and he delivered me from all my fears. When we seek him, we will come out of our fear. In Isaiah 41:10, Bible says, Fear not, I am with you. Do not be dismayed. I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness. And finally, I would like to end with a beautiful verse from the Bible, Psalm 56:3-4. Whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you. In God, I will put my trust. I will not fear what can flesh do to me. So friends, put your hope in the Lord. Whenever you are afraid, put your hope in him. You can trust him. He is trustworthy. Thank you.